What about...
What in the world's going on?
You know how when you come home every day and ask me what I did today?
Yeah?
Well, today I didn't do it.
Well, good morning and happy Mother's Day. And especially today, remember, this is the day the Lord's made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it. Now, today's message is taken from the Psalms, and it's Psalm 113, verse 9, which says, He grants the barren woman a home, like a joyful mother of children. Praise the Lord. Today's a time when we honor our mothers. Now, each woman that's listening to this or watching this, you fall into one of two categories. Either you're being a mother or you're having a mother. Now, isn't that deep theologically? But, you know, every woman is either a mother or has a mother. Matter of fact, every female is either being a mother or having a mother. And either way, this message is for you. Therefore, let me say that almost all women can have children. God opens the womb, God closes the womb. He tells us that in His Word. But that's not what makes a mother special. You see, it's how they nurture and care for and raise their children that determines whether or not they're special. Let's look at some examples of mothers in the Bible and learn from them. Now, if you have no children, then thank God for a good and godly mother. Or, if that's not the case, pray for your mother that God may change her. Let's look at some characteristics of mothers. First of all, I want you to notice a godly mother seeks the best for her children. You know, in Matthew chapter 20, verse 20 and 21, it says, Then the mother of Zebedee's sons, that's James and John, came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him, that is, something from Jesus. And he said to her, What do you wish? And she said to him, now listen to this, Grant that these two sons of mine may sit one on your right hand and the other on your left in your kingdom. She wanted the very best for her sons. You know, Jesus went on to tell her that she didn't know what she was asking for, what they would have to go through if that was the case. But she wanted the very best for her sons. Now, the opposite of that is wicked mothers use their children. And I've seen a lot of that in my days on the fire department and even in the ministry, where mothers just simply want to use their children. Mark chapter 6, verse 24 tells us, talks about this particular mother. It says her daughter went to her mother and said, What shall I ask? And listen to this. And the mother replied, The head of John the Baptist. Then in Mark chapter 6, verse 28, it says that she brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, or The person that beheaded John the Baptist gave the head to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. That was a sad situation. The girl had impressed Herod so much that he said, ask whatever you want, and I'll give it to you. And so she went and asked her mom. And instead of her mom saying, give something to you, you're the one that impressed him. What do you want? Instead of doing that, she said, tell him I want the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Man, there are some wicked women out there. I hope you're not one of them. Now, a mother should show and teach her faith in God to her children. I know that I would never be mentioned in the annals of Christendom. I know that I will never even be a byline or a thought in the history of the church. But think about this. Timothy is mentioned many times throughout the Bible, through the New Testament. And in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5, listen to what Paul has to say. He says, when I call to remembrance. Now he's writing to Timothy. He says, when I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you. Now listen, which first dwelt in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, I am persuaded is in you also. Wow. What a praise for a mother and grandmother that they raised this young man Timothy in such a way that even the Apostle Paul could see the faith that they had imparted to him. And finally, children should honor and see after their mothers. Now, it's not just something we should do. We are commanded to honor our mothers. It's one of the 10 Commandments. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, it says, honor your father and mother. You honor your mother. That's a commandment from God. Let me tell you, I think our children need to be taught the Bible even in school, if for no other reason than that right there. You see, it's the first commandment with promise. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2 says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. Hey, there's a promise that goes along with that commandment. If you do it, there's a promise that God will deliver to you. Well, what is that promise? In Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 16, it says, honor your father and mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days, now here's the promise, that your days may be long, and that it may be well with you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Your days may be long. In other words, if you don't honor your parents, especially honor your mother, God may cut your life short. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say what I've heard some others say, especially mothers. They tell their children, you honor your mother, or God says, I can take you out. No. The bottom line is, it's God's commandment. And when you disobey that commandment, there's consequences that go along with it. Now listen, can you imagine what the world would be like today if we did what Jesus said? Not only would we have great love for our parents, excuse me, but also in Matthew chapter 19, verse 19, Jesus says, honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. If we loved our neighbor like we loved ourselves, there wouldn't be all of the homicides, all the mass shootings, all the other things that go along. And by the way, I think all the mass shootings started when we took God out of the schools. Now, they weren't in full swing until those students graduated from high school. Then all the hatred starts. All you got to do is turn a TV on today, and you see nothing but hatred. That's all they want to report on. Now listen, I don't want to get off on that. Today's Mother's Day. And we are to care for our mothers. Not the federal government, not welfare. We are. The family, the kids. I know families all over the place whose parents are hurting, and the kids are living a life of Riley, and they could care less about their parents. They say, well, they draw welfare. That goes against God's principle. We need to take care of our parents. Jesus gave this example while he is there on the cross. And let me tell you something. I think we need to pay attention when Jesus gives us examples. In John chapter 19, verse 25 through 27, it says, now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, I'll get it, and Mary Magdalene. Now, when Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, that's John, by the way, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. Now then, I'll be honest, theologians struggle with that phrase right there. Woman, behold your son. And I think it's like a double-edged sword. He's saying, look at me, I'm dying. I can't help you if I'm dying. Other theologians think that he's talking about John when she said, behold your son. In other words, John would be taking his responsibility, because in verse 27, immediately following that, in verse 27, he says, then he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her to his own home. In other words, the bottom line is, John took Mary, that is Jesus' mother, took her to be his own mother, to take care of like he'd take care of his own mother. Now, that's pretty firm. That's kind of a tall bill to handle, to take care of somebody else's mother like you take care of your own. But that's what Jesus expects. We in the Christian family to take care of each other. By the way, it must be important to Jesus with all these references. Now I'm talking about to honor and take care of mothers. It must be important to him. I mean, he talks about it constantly. Now, if it was important to Jesus, at that most trying time when he was there on the cross taking his last breaths, how important should it be to us? Huh? Listen, If it was that important to Jesus, we better pay attention. We better follow suit. Now, listen, mothers, are you seeking the best for your children? Mothers, are you showing, teaching, and sharing your faith with your children? Not using them for your gain, but giving yourself for them. Folks, we're all children. Are you honoring and taking care of your mother? You may say, well, I don't know who my mother is. Well, who's raising you? Are you honoring and taking care of her? Hey, I've talked to several people, some that grew up in a foster home, were in one home all alone, but the people never adopted them. But that mother in that home did a superb job. Those people love that mother. I know some that have been adopted, and that mother did a great job. That was their mother. I've also met some that only use fostering kids for the money, and they could care less about the kids. I believe God has a special place for them, and I don't think it's heaven. But that's my opinion. Try your best to be the best mom you can, and watch your children honor you. They may not when they're young. I'll admit to that. But when they come to their senses, they'll realize how special you are. Well, I hope you have a happy Mother's Day. Wonderful time. Hope your children gather around you and call you blessed. I hope that they take you out to eat and treat you like royalty. And until next time, God bless. Amen.